for me not locking the fuck in. Okay. We're back to who the fuck did I marry? It's happening. We're fucking tapped in. We still got the SNL Shane Gillis episode. Don't you worry about a thing, baby. We're going to be doing that as well. As far as recaps goes, I'm not going to recap it one more time. It's so much fucking content. You didn't miss anything. If you, I didn't get to watch from this is literally the part 2. Okay. This is part 2. We got a man who's 6'4". Okay. And apparently it takes you a long way, perhaps too long. Okay. Perhaps too freaking long. I didn't really I watched like 2 parts yesterday, and then I got stun locked because I was getting fucking ass blasted online over a thing that I don't believe yet again, being clipped out of context yet again. Okay. Ain't no way you believe he's 6'4". I'm just saying she believes that he's 6'4".
What's up, my friends? And
so for the interest for my interest as a journalist, as an honest to God journalist, a professional journalist who does this professionally, you know, no memes. Okay. This is, I'm a journalist. I'm a TikTok T journalist. This is a lady who works with the Georgia State Police. She's a civilian. She's not a cop. She meets a man. The man is 6'4". This is before the pandemic happens. Okay. I am the Jake Tapper of gaming, and I'm the emo Jake Tapper of doing journalism for TikTok T. Welcome. This wonderful person who actually is a phenomenal storyteller meets a man who she's calling Legion. Other people in his life also call him Legion, as far as I understand. In this 80-part series, she goes through the details of how a person that she ended up marrying was lying about everything, lying about every single minutia, every single detail, while simultaneously also paying her rent, which is almost like it almost makes it weirder because he was paying for the groceries and the rent. So he wasn't extracting anything out of her outside of the fact that he was fueling his narcissistic desires to manipulate an unsuspecting individual who gave this man her all. This is our generation's Odyssey. That's right. And she is our Omer. Now, by part 39, for those of you who are just tuning in, we found out that this man lied about pretty much everything, going to San Diego State University, lying about having multiple relatives that did not exist, lying about relatives that passed away to COVID when they had passed away many, many years prior, lying about his job, being the vice president of mustard or a condiment that we do not know of, even going so far to lie about a sister that he had that he would actually inevitably take to a barbecue with her wife at the time, only to turn around halfway through the trip. He also took her to a graveyard where he showed an unmarked or a marked grave with the same exact last name that he has to say, this is where my grandparents lay. Some of the funnier lies was that as an arena football player, he was able to invest wisely the $18 that he made, $18 an hour, $12,000 on average for the season, and set up an offshore account. He's lied time and time again about buying a $700,000 house in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, full cash with a wire transfer with money that he never actually had. He duped many, many people throughout this process alongside his wife. She also had a miscarriage. They shacked up together quite quickly due to COVID. Lived in the same apartment throughout this entire process, where they were looking for different houses, 5 separate occasions. They were looking for different houses to purchase. She knew early on that he was lying, by the way, about the house situation, at least in the first instance. And yet she kept going due to a little bit of religion and due to, in my opinion, desperation. We all, after all, want to feel loved. We all want to feel like we are in a committed relationship with a person who is the right one for us. But Legion was not the right one. Part 39 of Who the Fuck Did I Marry starts now.
On the driver's license about that.
Let me start from the beginning.
I have to happen. But that's how I was introduced to the Apple job. It literally was in a span of within 2 weeks. And he resigned from the condiment company and immediately said, I'm going to move over to Apple. Just wanted to clarify that. So we will continue on. Part 39, who the fuck did I marry? Everything you're going to hear probably in this part, in the next part, all of this happens.
Oh, I didn't recap that she kicked him out. Yeah, that's right. She actually ends up confronting, calls the ex-wife. The ex-wife immediately tells her, like, oh, if you're calling me, things are too bad. She then goes through like a Sherlock Holmes detective moment where like she literally figures out what his actual real social security number is. She's giving him like fake social security. He's given her fake social security numbers time and time again. And then at this point, she has kicked him out of the house. She's kicked him out of the house. Okay. After an altercation takes place, or she snaps, kicks him out of the house. He goes back to Pennsylvania, where his family lives. Now she must serve him divorce papers. So she has to find where he is. He's back in Atlanta or back in Georgia. She has to find where he is physically and serve him the divorce papers. The family, we find out right around this part, around part 34, 35, we find out that the family reaches out to her and they say, oh my God, this guy came, Legion came back to us and said that you had a cop that you cheated on him with, and that he came in and threatened you with a gun. He came and threatened Legion with a gun and kicked him out, and that they were trying to call the Georgia Police Department and try to get this person fired, probably get her in trouble because she used to work there. Okay? The family doesn't believe Legion either. They know he's a charlatan. They know he's a bum. So they do their due diligence and call her personally. In that phone conversation, she finds out that Legion lied about having all of these relatives and that Legion also has a twin. We suspect that Legion is also deeply addicted to opiates at this point. And of course, he was cheating on her the entire time with a sex worker by the name of Peaches.
In the month of July 2021. Divorce has been filed. It was filed the end of June. I got his signature on the divorce settlement agreement. I thought that I had to wait 30 days before I could actually file that with the court. And so this is kind of in the limbo period because I'm still within those 30 days. So he left a book bag at the house, book bag that had all kind of paperwork.
I have to pee.
Inside the book bag, this is the paperwork number one, I found a packet from the condiment company where it showed his 401k contributions. It also stated in there that he had been terminated. So he was terminated from the condiment company according to the paperwork in the packet that I saw in the book bag that he left at my house. Also in the book bag were paycheck stubs from a previous job where he worked at a cemetery, the same cemetery that he took me to show me where his grandmother and grandfather were buried. So let's go ahead. I'll do this video and say this is what he told me. This is what I confirmed. He told me his grandmother and grandfather were buried there. He showed me a headstone with a family name on it. If you go back in previous parts, I talk about it. The truth is they are not buried there. He is of no relation to the people who are buried at that particular gravesite. Only reason why he knew about it is because he had worked there. Also in the book bag, it was a copy of a driver's license that he had. The address on the driver's license, now this I still don't have an answer to, but the address on the driver's license was the same address as the cemetery because I looked it up on Google. Also in the book, a copy of a driver's license that he had. The address on the driver's license, now this I still don't have an answer to, but the address on the driver's license was the same address as the cemetery because I looked it up on Google. Also in the book bag was paperwork from another construction company job, meaning it was paycheck stubs from another construction company here in Atlanta that he had worked for. It did not have dates on it, so I don't know when he worked for the construction company. Also in the book bag, paperwork.
It's crazy they actually worked at the fucking graveyard, the cemetery that she lied about. And that she lied about and literally he lied about, sorry. Legion is a survivor, rewind. Wait, what? What did I miss?
This is the paperwork number one, I found a packet from the condiment company where it showed his 401k contributions. It also stated in there that he had been terminated. So he was terminated from the condiment company according to the paperwork in the packet that I saw in the book bag that he left at my house. Also in the book bag were paycheck stubs from a previous job where he worked at a cemetery, the same cemetery that he took me to show me where his grandmother and grandfather were buried. So let's go ahead. I'll do this video and say this is what he told me. This is what I confirmed. He told me his grandmother and grandfather were buried there. He showed me a headstone with a family name on it. If you go back in previous parts, I talk about it. The truth is they are not buried there. He is of no relation to the people who are buried at that particular gravesite. Only reason why he knew about it is because he had worked there. Also in the book bag, it was a copy of a driver's license that he had. The address on the driver's license, now this I still don't have an answer to, but the address on the driver's license was the same address as the cemetery, because I looked it up on Google. Also in the book bag was paperwork from another construction company job, meaning it was paycheck stubs from another construction company here in Atlanta that he had worked for. It did not have dates on it, so I don't know when he worked for the construction company. Also in the book bag paperwork was unemployment paperwork. So it looked like he had been receiving unemployment just before I met him. I met him in March. It looked like he had been receiving unemployment January and February. So once again, let's confirm. He did not work for the condiment company for 6 to 7 years. Also in there were scraps of paper from a temp agency.
This is where we find out that Legion never existed at all. No one by the name of Legion is showing up on our records for 35 years.
Where it was information on the job that he had been placed at. Where was that job? The condiment company. He would be a forklift / loader is what it said. So I interpret that to mean he can drive a forklift, but he would have been loading up the 18-wheelers for them to go out to their deliveries.
Forklift
also
certified?
In this book bag.
That's it. 6'4", forklift certified. Things are starting to make a lot more sense, okay? Listen, nothing, and I mean nothing gets ladies going like a man who's 6'4" and forklift certified, baby.
Bag was paperwork from Clayton County courts, I believe, for a weekend. What is it called? Weekender jail. It was like a weekender jail receipt. So I had to do some research. So apparently what that means is that there is an option where if you have a job, let's say you were sentenced to 60 days in jail, but you have a full-time job. Apparently the court can say, okay, you'll go to jail on the weekends. So in other words, you have to report to the jail on Friday at 5 o'clock and you'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You will get out Sunday at 6 o'clock. Apparently that's actually a real thing. So what was in the book bag were multiple yellow receipts for different weekends that he had to report and get out of jail. Last but not least, there were some additional pictures, and then there were some, and when I say pictures, I'm talking about family photos. And then there was another additional copy of his driver's license with the Douglasville address. I looked up that address. The name associated with that address was the same name as the ex-girlfriend that he had in between the ex-wife and me. If you go back to the video where I talk about the conversation I had with the ex-wife, she tells me that the address was going to come back to the ex-girlfriend. I'm simply saying that is correct. So what she told me is true. So because of everything that I found, I decided to go down a new rabbit hole. Again, just recapping what I said in previous videos. Ex-husband was always a stickler about law enforcement. His dad was a retired police officer. I'm just telling y'all the story. His dad was a retired police officer. Mom was a retired teacher. After his dad retired, they moved to Augusta, started a church. He took me to that church in Augusta, the same day that he took me to meet his aunt who lived in Augusta. So these are now things that he actually took me to, just like he took me to the cemetery. So that's what I found in the book bag. The weekender jail receipts. I went ahead and went online to find out exactly why did he have to go to jail for. And I'm going to end this part here. The next part has to do with his criminal history. Part 40, who the fuck did I mean? So we are now at the point of July 2021. We're at the point where I've spoken to the female cousin, and she gave me the phone number for the older brother. For the purposes of this video, we're going to call him Chris. Chris was very nice. I called him. He was gracious. He was willing to answer whatever questions I had. And what he said to me was, he said, my brother has always been a liar. He's always been a liar. He said, but ask me what questions you have, and I'll confirm what's real and what's not. First question I had was, when was the last time you spoke to him? Without missing a beat, Chris says, 2015, just after our mother's funeral.
Person responsible here. Obviously, she's a victim. I want to make sure that you guys understand that. But how did she not see like him making a call, for example? Did he not have like fake phone numbers? There's no way that he had like, maybe he pre-recorded, maybe he put on a YouTube video or something. I just don't really understand. This is the part you don't understand. I mean, there's so much I don't understand, but especially this part is like pretty easy to catch up on. They have apps that fake calls. I mean, but even then, like, you don't have any context. Like, guys, like if you live with someone, even if you're not looking to look at their phone or anything like that, you're gonna see it, right? Like you're gonna see their phones. Like think about it. Your brother, your sister, your mom, you're sitting in the you're sitting in the room with them. Like even on accident, like you'll see them like type something on their phone. It's not even like a malicious way. He probably made fake contacts. What are you talking about? No, I know. And then there's the second part of this though, because you will also hear like some feedback.
So I'm on the phone with Chris. My mind is spinning. It is blowing up like a volcano. I mean, I'm going crazy. I'm going crazy because what this means is that for the past 4 or 5 months, every morning that he's having a phone call with his brother Chris, I am now understanding in real time that that phone call was completely fake. So Chris tells me maybe he was talking to somebody else, but it wasn't me. He said the only family member that Legion actually talks to is the twin. And that's only because for some reason, I guess it's their twins, he helps him out when he needs it. Legion only calls the twin when he needs money. And the twin, according to Chris, now this is the part that might blow some minds. The twin brother, the one that is older by 20 minutes, is VP of his company, is married, drives a luxury car, and lives in like a 4 or 5 bedroom house in Nashville. So Chris is saying to me, he was like, it sounds like he took the identity of the twin and was trying to act like that's his life. And it's not. He was like, that nigga ain't never had no money, ain't never kept a job a long period of time. And he was like, and you're telling me that he claims he's VP of a company?
This is actually the prestige. Yo, this is crazy, dog. That's crazy. I mean, I guess it makes more sense that way. That way he can like pretend.
And so
easier.
he was like, did you ever see anything? Did you ever meet people? Like Chris, I respect the fact that he was asking me the same questions y'all are asking me. Did you ever meet any family members? And I told him. I said, I met your aunt. Well, what aunt is that? I told him her name. He said, that ain't our damn aunt. I don't know if y'all have ever dealt with people from Philly. So he was just loud. He was like, that ain't our aunt. He said, that is our mother's best friend. And I don't trust that hoe. I'm sorry. It's the way he said it that it makes me laugh. Anyway, he's like, I don't trust her. I don't trust her at all. She is not our aunt. She was our mother's best friend when our mother was living in Augusta. She's not our aunt. So then I explained to him about the other brothers. The brothers, remember, there were 2 half brothers from his dad. One lived in Baltimore, one lived in Augusta. Chris is on the phone saying, I don't know who them niggas are. They ain't related to us. He said, our dad never had other kids. He was like, so you mean to tell me this nigga going around telling people that our dad had kids on our mom? And I said to him, well, the way he actually put it is that the 2 brothers came before y'all. He was like, hell no. No. So then I explained to him about the sisters. He was like, who the hell is Shantae? And I was like, Shantae, again, I'm just telling you what I was told. Shantae is a sister that lives in Douglasville, married with 2 kids. He was like, no, we don't have a sister.
Come on. The question we all have at this point is, did the twin go to SDSU and play arena football? If this does not get cleared up, I'm going to have to literally figure out who these people are and contact them personally. I have to know. Did the twin play arena football or not? It has to. I can't be the only one who cares about this. Like I can't be the only person who's like genuinely trying to find this out, because it would be such a specific lie if not. I mean, yeah, where the fuck would you get arena football from anyway? Did the twin invest the $12K? At this point, are the Invicta watches real? No. Listen. As we established earlier on the stream, you absolutely can buy Invicta watches with a forklift certified construction salary. Okay? We know that that's real because the watches are, I said pauper watches. I feel like getting a fake Invicta watch is like getting a fake fake Hanes brand t-shirt. Like, it costs almost the same, dog. It costs almost the same to buy the fake one or the real one. 34 MKD 50. Here's a guy who's overcome the odds, okay, the Turkish ban, and he's still in here giving very real subscriptions to people to avoid the top of the hour ad break. 50 at a goddamn time. 50 at a goddamn time. Not fake, but very real. The GOAT himself. Now, of course, the 3-minute ad break is upon us. If you want an uninterrupted broadcast experience, then you have to subscribe if you haven't gotten gifted by. If you should auction the Invicta watches, I'd buy one. Here's the 3-minute ad break now.
Told him about Kim. He was like, Kim's not our sister, she's a cousin. And he said to me, and I know she ain't talked to him in forever in 2 days. He said, so the only people who are his family members is Chris and the twin. He's like, we got some cousins up here. I told him about Junebug. I told him about the uncle. I told him about the grandmother. And he's just sitting back like, oh my God. He was like, I realize that every relationship my brother gets in, he gets worse. And it sounds like he is actually worse than what he was in the last relationship. And I thought he was talking about the ex-wife that I had spoken to. No, he had no idea there was another wife. Because again, he hasn't spoken to him since 2015. So he was like, the best thing I can say to you is this. He said, thank God you ain't have kids with him. He said, get your divorce and forget you ever met this man. And he was like, and I know how that sounds because he's my brother. He said, but if I didn't have to claim him, I wouldn't. And I said to him something that I should have probably said in this whole TikTok series. This is not someone that you forget. This is not a situation that, man, I don't even remember him. No. What I don't remember is the version of myself before I met him. because nothing so far has turned out to be true. The only thing that Chris was able to tell me is true is that, number one, yes, there is a brother in Philly, him. Yes, there is a brother in Nashville, the twin. Yes, both parents are deceased. That is what I was told from the beginning. Those pieces of information are true. The grandmother did die in 2008. He was like, no, she didn't. She definitely didn't die in 2020. I told him how I found the obituary. And so he was like, and the uncle, he said, which uncle is he talking about? Because if you guys remember, back in one of the parts, I talk about where he said his uncle was giving him advice on why he should not open up his savings account to let me see it. He would not let me see it. And so I'm telling Chris about the uncle, and he was like, that uncle been dead for years. I told him about Junebug. He said, Junebug been dead for years. And I said, Chris, he was having conversations with Junebug on the phone in front of me. He was like, it wasn't Junebug. He said, it sounds like my brother was making up the conversation. He said, he definitely was making up the conversations with me. He said, hell no, I ain't gonna be on the phone at 6 o'clock in the morning. So the conversation with Chris solidified that this is the actual family tree. And no, there were never any conversations with his brother every morning when I was getting ready to go to work. They had never talked. On to the next part. Part 41, who the fuck did I marry? So this is a continuation of my conversation.
I think mental illness plays a role here. This is not like defending Legion in any way, obviously. But I don't think you can lie this much unless you have like severe mental illness. Like this convincingly and this good. Like you have to, at a certain point, you have to like, I guess, believe it. Like obviously he has narcissistic personality disorder, right? Not to do the backseat therapy shit. But like beyond that, there's some additional illnesses running around
with Chris, which will then lead into some other stuff. So Chris has confirmed that he has not spoken to Legion since 2015. So now we know that the phone calls that Legion was having every morning on the phone with Chris when we were, getting ready to go to work, the phone calls were fake. I demonstrated in the last video how I think how he was doing those phone calls, because he would relay messages from me to whoever was on the phone. So Chris and I also then talked about their parents. So if you remember in the beginning, I told you from the get-go, this man was, very respectful of law enforcement because his dad was a retired Philadelphia police officer. The mom was a retired teacher. And so he had the utmost respect for law enforcement. That's what he used to always say. Because, again, there's a lot that he lied about. So I'm trying to only highlight the big things because, truthfully, it got to a point where when he would say that as a VP in his company, he had a meeting with the local sheriff. Child, we know that's a lie, so I don't even need to go into detail about that because, again, why? So I told Chris what Legion said about their dad being a retired police officer, and I was explaining how he said the mom was a retired teacher. So Chris listened, again, very gracious, very nice guy. He listened, and he was like, so are you ready for me to tell you what's true and what's not? And at this point, I was already convinced I was going to be drinking heavily that night after this phone call, so I was like, go ahead. All right, so here's what Legion said. Legion said, my dad was a retired police officer with Philadelphia PD. When he retired, he and my mom moved to Augusta. I was there for high school, and they started a church. He took me to that church in Augusta and showed me where the church that they started. The truth. Dad, according to Chris, their dad was nowhere near the church. That man ain't go to church on Easter. He ain't go to church on Christmas. He was like, my dad he ain't stepped foot in the church since the day he got married. That was the last time he went to church. He didn't have nothing to do with church. He said that their father was the furthest thing from a pastor. And he was like, I love my dad, but that man drank, smoked, and he was not a pastor. The mom was not a retired teacher. She did substitute teach at one point, but she was not a retired teacher. The dad was a truck driver. And not only was the dad a truck driver, at one point, he was a correctional officer. And so I said to Chris, I was like, I said I had no idea, of course. I had no idea. So now we know the truth. The dad was never in law enforcement. And I'm not knocking correctional officers. I want to make very clear because I know that sometimes people that work in law enforcement feel like, look, when I'm out there patrolling, that is not the same as being a correction officer. And
Put the hands on the wheel, please. What are you doing? I can't be the only one who's a little bit worried about that. Please put your hands on the wheel, ma'am.
Officers may feel the same, so I just want to give the distinction between the two. So the dad at one point was a correction officer. However, his primary career was a truck driver. And so the dad would do long hauls. So Chris is explaining, no, he was like, now that's funny. He said, if you knew our dad, you would understand how funny that is to even insinuate that he was a pastor. And so I told him about the church that we went to. He was like, oh, okay. So he took you to a church in Augusta and told you that was our parents' church. He was like, now our mom used to go to church, every now and then. But he said, our dad ain't been to church since the day he married mom. So the church that Legion took me to and said that his parents started that church, That was not true. So he just took me on a field trip for nothing, basically. So
That's like, these are the parts that are like the craziest, because it makes no sense to do this. Like, you did not have to, under any circumstance, like, take her to the fucking graveyard to be like, these are my grandparents. Like, he's setting up additional lies specifically for no other reason than to then continue lying to her. It makes no sense. It's world building, but like, why? Like, you can do it without doing all that, right?
So I told him about the weekend, because I did tell Chris where I worked. And that is when Chris said to me, because at the time I worked in a law enforcement agency, and he said to me, now, how does that work? He said, because Legion, he done been in trouble a few times. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I had not yet gone online into the court system to see what type of trouble he's been in. And so he explained to me, he was like, just run his criminal history and you'll see it for yourself. He said, because I don't know all the charges, but run his criminal history. I said, okay. He gave me some homework. I'll run his criminal history. So again, he cleared up a lot of stuff in regards to the family dynamics. He did explain to me that, yes, he does have a daughter. He and his ex-wife are divorced. And I said, well, Legion would talk about the niece, meaning Chris's daughter, and would send her stuff for her birthday. And he was like, he said, I'm almost positive my brother never sent anything for my daughter's birthday. And I explained to him, I said, isn't your daughter's name Egypt? He said, no. Who the hell is Egypt? And I said, I was told that was your daughter's name. That's the reason why I'm saying the name on here, because obviously we're about to confirm that's not the daughter. So I said, I was told that's your daughter's name. I said, I went with him to Rack Room Shoes and bought shoes for what I was told was your daughter. And she lived in St. Louis with your ex-wife. He said, no. He said, my daughter and my ex-wife do not live in St. Louis. He said, I don't know who Egypt is. He was like, are you sure it wasn't for a woman? And I said, well, it was kids' shoes. And he was like, no. He said, and I told him, I said, I went to the UPS store, I mailed it, and they printed the label with the girl's name on it. And I'm thinking this whole time, it's Legion's niece. Chris is like, I don't know who that is. That's not even the name of one of our cousins. So I have no idea, ladies and gentlemen, who my ex-husband was buying girl shoes for and had me sending them, telling me it's for his niece.
Oh.
I have no idea. So Chris is like, yeah, he finally said to me the same thing the ex-wife said, which is pretty much whatever he told you is a lie. And I'm being honest with you guys. It is very hard to comprehend that everything is a lie. Like, there has to be something that's true. I'm like, how is he paying? If he wasn't working at the condiment company, or he got fired from the condiment company, how is he still paying the bills? Keep in mind, we never joined our accounts. He wanted to, but we never did, because he wouldn't show me the offshore or the savings account, which of course never existed. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, I know that I saw his checking account, I know that I saw his savings account, and he had money in there. Something had to be true. Something had to be true. And Chris was like, no. He said, it sounds like everything my brother said, everything that he told you was made up. He said, those phone calls were definitely made up. He said, I don't know who Egypt is. That's not any family member of ours. I don't know who Shantae is. We don't have a sister. He said, we don't have half brothers. He was like, I'm telling you who the family members are. He said, I am so sorry that my brother put you through this. So now let's go into the next part. So I finished going through the book bag. Still July 2021. I finished going through the book bag. There were some other folders with papers in there. He had left the work phone. What I actually found out was that it was not a work phone. It was simply a secondary personal phone. He told me it was a work phone. I thought that the company was paying for the work phone. That's what I thought. No. In this case, I went into the deleted folder of the pictures in the work phone. I keep saying work phones because, again, this is just a secondary phone. It is deactivated. There's no minutes on it. So I go into the deleted pictures, and what I see is what looks like a screenshot of his checking account, the one that I saw with the available balance. Then there's another photo of the screenshot of the savings that he showed me. Now, one of two things it could be. Either one,
to the people saying, what if it turns out that she made all this up and the real lie was a story entirely? One, that's crazy. Obviously, like, that would be almost phenomenal, considering how much she would have to make up. That's like even more impressive than like Legion making up shit. But we already know that that's not the case, because Legion himself has reacted. Where is it? In the interest of course, not conducting journalistic malpractice here, there's an entire collection of There's an entire collection of legions. 34 MKD 50, a hype train started with a 50 gifted subs. What the hell's going on? Yeah, oh fuck, this is spoiler alert, but this is Legion.
It's not real, and it was pulled offline. Or 2, he took a screenshot of his own account and saved the photos. So this is when I got introduced to reverse Google image search. I did a reverse Google image search. Sure enough, as you probably have figured out, some of you, because I read it in the comments, what he showed me when he turned his phone around, showing me his available checking account balance, was nothing more than a screenshot that he had found on Google. When he showed me his savings, turned the phone around, because remember, I demonstrated for y'all how he was, and then, you know, turned it around and showed it to me as if he was signing in. When he did that, he was simply showing me a screenshot that he had taken from Google Images. Because when I did a reverse Google image search with those 2 photos, the checking and the savings, it came right up. It was nothing more than just Google Images. In my phone, I didn't even need this because, again, I already knew that he was not a VP regional manager, but still, for shits and giggles, I did a reverse image search of the charcoal BMW. Remember I told y'all he had sent me pictures of the company car.
That's easy, Google.
Nothing more than a screenshot he had taken off of Google Images.
Of course, that part is easy.
The house that he showed.
How did she fall for a screenshot? That's crazy. I mean, that's not, dude, come on. He did a lot more shit that was like way, way more unhinged and way easier to prove than the fucking Beamer. Come on.
Told me that he had in San Diego, Google Images. So what we can now confirm is anything he showed me when he's turning his phone around is nothing more than an image from Google Images at this point. The checking account, the savings account, Google Images. The house, Google Images. The company car, that charcoal gray BMW 5 Series, Google Images. So at this point, I realized, okay, nothing is real. And I wasn't so much in a rage, to be honest with you. I wasn't in a rage then and there, as much as it was, I really truly had a moment where I said to myself, oh my God, what the fuck have I let in my life? Like, this is not even human at this point. That's really how I felt. Like, again, as someone who, I studied psychology, but I didn't graduate with a psychology degree. However, I have never dealt with a pathological liar. I have studied about them, but I have never come into contact with a pathological liar. Because to a compulsive liar...
Guys, I mean, listen, it's one of those things where it's such an elaborate ruse that, like, you almost feel like there's no way that someone would go to those lengths. Like, I kind of understand where she's coming from in some ways, where the lie is so elaborate that, like, you don't expect someone to be that fucking cruel, especially because there's nothing like, there's no benefit. Like, there is no, can't be elaborate if you can reverse Google it. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That part is like pretty basic shit. But I do think that one of the major problems here is that it quite literally does not make sense. Like, he's only doing this for like manipulation, for the manipulation's sake. Do you understand? That's why it's like, the fuck is happening here? Like, there's nothing else going on. Also, I think Chad's forgetting that when you're in a relationship, you're not suspecting the worst of your partner. She trusted him, and he used that trust to lie on her on all fronts. Like, he was doing it for the love of the game. You know what I mean? That's crazy. And obviously, there's like definitely some areas where she could have pulled the exit valve a little bit, right? And she didn't. And I think that that's like partially a consequence of her like wanting to believe. Sunk cost fallacy. This is happening during COVID. Desperation from her part too, to like believe that, like, there was definitely some motivated reasoning at play for sure. But I do, low self-esteem, conservatism plays a role as well, like playing a traditional role in this marriage. Like, she mentioned time and time again that she did not consult any of her friends or family members, because she thought, like, you know, this is supposed to be, you know, I'm traditional, I'm old school. What happens inside of the relationship stays inside of the relationship. You know what I mean? But perhaps the most important facet that I think a lot of chatters are overlooking is that he was 6'4", as far as we understand. Unless he lied about that too, he at least looked 6'4" or tall enough. Okay. And I think you get away with a lot when you're 6'4".
If you ask them, man, why did you lie to me? They probably are going to have a reason. Pathological liars don't have a reason. Like, there's no limit to the lie. So I have now confirmed that at least 70% of everything that I thought I knew is now absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. So in between all of this, I get a phone call from the aunt in Augusta. The aunt in Augusta, who Chris has confirmed is the mother's best friend. She is not their mother's sister or dad's sister. She's the best friend of the deceased mom. She calls me, and this is the one I have met. This is the one that Chris was like, I don't trust that hoe, anyway. So she called because she wanted to know what happened. She wasn't trying to be nosy or messy or anything like that. She's just trying to find out what happened because apparently Legion is trying to come stay with her. So she asked me, sweet lady, but she said, what happened with you guys? And I told her we're getting a divorce. I said, because he lied to me a lot. He lied to me a lot. And so what breaks my heart about the conversation with her is that she said, so whatever happened to the baby? Mind you, we went to Augusta, told her I was pregnant. I thought he told her that I had a miscarriage. He didn't. He never told this woman I had a miscarriage. So she informs me, this is what she tells me. So now we're confirming something else. She tells me that on at least 5 times while I'm at work, Legion was driving to Augusta and telling her that he was going to visit the church of where the parents allegedly the church that the parents started. And I was like, what do you mean he went to Augusta? She said, I've seen him like 4 or 5 times. He's come down here, and each time I've asked him to bring the baby. And I said, what baby? And she said, the baby that y'all had. He told me that y'all had a baby boy. And I said, no, ma'am. I said, I had a miscarriage in June of 2020. And she said, oh my God. Oh, she was doing that whole thing. She said, this whole time, he told me that y'all had a son in January. And I had been asking him for pictures. I had been asking him to bring both of you down here so I could meet him. And he always had an excuse as to why he wouldn't bring the baby. And the last time he was in Augusta, he said that he was leaving you and he was taking the baby with him and that you were at work. I am not making this up. That is what that woman told me. And I just was like, no, ma'am, none of that is true. There is no baby. I said I had no idea he was going to Augusta. Next part. Part 43, who the fuck did I marry? So after the conversation with the aunt, again, she's telling me that Legion has been keeping up this lie that we had a son. I let her know, no, ma'am, there was no baby. We did not have a baby. And I said, I thought that he told you. And she said, he's told a few people that you all had a baby. And she said, because I know some people were trying to send a gift to celebrate the birth. I didn't know anything about that. Didn't know anything about that. So she said, he's trying to come stay with me. She said, but I don't think I want him to, again, she's an older lady. She was like, I don't think I want him to come here because I don't really want to get involved with his divorce again. And I said, what do you mean again? I said, are you talking about the previous wife? And I said the previous ex-wife's name. She said, I don't know who that is. I'm talking about LaTanya, that one, the first one.
God damn.
And I said, well, what happened? Do y'all remember I said in my previous video that I read their divorce records. He had filed for divorce and they had a temporary protection order against each other. I said that. So now the aunt is on the phone saying that she had to go to court and testify on Legion's behalf in regards to the temporary protective order. And I was like, well, what happened? She said they got into a fight with each other. And she slapped him. And I said, well, do you know why they got into a fight? And she said, yeah, apparently he had lied to the wife and it was something major and they got into a physical fight. And she said that woman almost beat his behind. And so he asked the court for a temporary protective order. So now I'm just getting the backstory on how that TPO was even came into play. So I told her, I said, Miss Christy, we'll call her. I said, you don't have to worry about that. I said, we're not, he's already signed the paperwork. We're not fighting. I don't have it in me. I don't. So
she dodged that one. She almost did, which is kind of understandable for sure. But she did luckily dodge that part. She was close. Remember, she almost did beat him with a fucking lamp, is what she said.
I said, I'm not going to tell you not to have certain people in your home, but I am going to tell you that I'm just barely kind of discovering exactly what the lies are in regards to Legion. So if you feel comfortable having him in your home, then do it. I said, but I am going forward with this divorce, and once the divorce is final, I will have nothing to do with him. And I said, and I'm so sorry, that he lied to you and kind of pulled at your heartstrings in regards to a baby. I said, there is no baby. So she said, so y'all are really getting a divorce? I said, and I didn't want to cuss to the older ladies, but I said, yes, ma'am, we are. And so We get off the phone. Also during this time, Legion would call me every now and then. Legion had no idea. I've spoken to his ex-wife. I've spoken to his brother. I've spoken to his female cousin. He had no idea. I have now, if we want to go through real quick and talk about what we can confirm. We can confirm that there is no sister. We already knew there was no baby. There was no VP job. Again, he was a temp, and apparently he was making decent money. So what I believe, and this is just what I think off of putting pieces together, I think that he made enough money to pay the household bills, because it wasn't as if the household bills were so expensive. He made enough money to live on his own. But instead of him living on his own, he's living with me. So we can also confirm that when he told me that he was paying his car off and he called the dealership and paid his car off, we can confirm that that's a lie. That story will come up later on. So pretty much at this point, the only thing I know to be true, his name, his date of birth, the secondary social security number that was on my background check, and that he has 2 brothers and the parents are deceased. At this point in time of July 2021, that's all that I was able to confirm that to be true. So later on, Legion calls me. He calls me because he wants some money. He just needs a little bit of money to hold him over till payday. And so we're on the phone. The call, again, I was recording all my calls at the time. We're on the phone, and I finally kind of confronted him, number one, about having a twin. That's when he tells me, you know, I don't know why I lied, but I don't really talk about him. Number two, I asked him about.
Yeah, the craziest part about it is like paying for everything. So he lied, and can benefit of him lying was to pay for everything and have someone believe him. That's what that is like despite being a fucking bum overall, it is kind of wild that he just like paid for all the groceries and shit. Like that part is actually legitimate. Like stories like this happen, not all the time and not to this severity, but rarely do you have a situation where rarely do you ever have a situation where the dude is like invested in the lie to this degree and also simultaneously like not benefiting financially from the circumstances. That's why I even was like, maybe he's gonna like assassinate her. Like maybe he's gonna like be dumb enough to try to like fucking poison her after putting like a life insurance on her or some shit. You know what I mean? Secretly. Because like there's just like when you have a con man, he's got to have a con. The con man doesn't just stop and end at confidence. The confidence man usually has a con that he's running.
I asked him, why did he get fired from the condiment company?
My life is so funny.
Story is
watching a Turkish left-wing streamer dressed as a goth, watching a woman, first of all, emo, watching a woman talk about her ex-husband in her car. This is such a meta experience for me. And you know what? I'm totally in for it. Yep. That's the internet, baby.
That he got fired because he had helped a truck driver and he was not supposed to. I know it's a lie. Y'all don't even have to tell me. I know it's a lie. Number three, I asked him, why did you tell your aunt that we had a baby? He claims he never told her that, and that she's old and she didn't know what she was talking about. So then I asked him if he was ever in trouble where he's been arrested. And he said, yeah, I've been arrested as a juvenile, but my father had my record expunged. I said, were you ever arrested as an adult? He said, no, I ain't never been arrested as an adult. I said, so you never went to weekend jail? He said, no, I don't even know what that is. So he doesn't know what weekend jail is. So that's his story. And so he was still standing by the lies he told me. So finally, I just asked him, and this is where let me just say it. I asked him, why the hell did you even marry me? Like, why? Why did you even marry me? Because you easily could have just stayed dating or been the boyfriend or just moved on with your life. Like, you didn't have to marry me. You didn't have to pull me into a marriage and make me think that this is what you wanted. This is what he said to me on that phone call. He said, I had to marry you. And I was like, no, you didn't. He said, yes, I did. He said, I knew full well from day one that there was no way you were going to stay my girlfriend for longer than a year. He said, I knew it. He said, I knew in order to keep you, I was going to have to marry you. Y'all, my jaw hit the ground.
But
I could
like,
not believe
why?
he said it. And he said it so matter of fact. And I was like, that was the most fucked up thing.
I mean, it is honest, but like, I don't get it. Like, what the fuck? What do you get out of this manipulation? It makes no goddamn sense. It's like a serial killer. I talked about this before, but like, you know, when you hear about like serial killers who just like go out and like kill random people, and it's like terrifying because it's not like a passionate, it's not a murder of passion. Isn't that what it's called? Like, there's no motivation beyond just like a person who is just broken. Okay. And it makes no goddamn sense. It's like a crime of passion. Yes. It's not a crime of passion. It's just like, you're saying the housing crisis has gone too far, but like the dude was paying for the fucking rent and the groceries. Like, he's broke too. It's not like he has a lot of fucking money. Like, he's like scrounging up pennies, like paying for all this shit specifically so he could game this woman all the time with the weirdest nonsense. You're falling for his lies? No, I'm not. Bro, if he spent all of this time, investment, and finances and everything else on like being a productive member of society or doing literally anything else, he probably, if he did, fuck it, if he spent it on doing actual cons, you know what I mean? He's a confidence man. Do a con. You know what I mean? Steal some fucking banknotes. Steal money. Do something. It makes no sense. You'd be way better off. Yeah, at the end of the day, he's doing it for like a shared Netflix subscription, you know?
You could ever say.
Bro, if he did this, he could have, I feel like this level of energy and investment, he could have fucking robbed the bank and gotten away with it, okay?
44. The videos that you saw earlier today, and yes, I'm aware, it was brought to my attention. I had to make a decision whether or not to finish, keep my word, or stop, disappear. I mean, disappear. Let's finish. So, first of all, let me say this. It is not easy telling this story. It's entertaining. I know it's gone viral, but it is not easy telling this story. I made a decision to tell the story. I made a decision to share my story, what I went through, in hopes that it helps one person. But I would be remiss if I didn't tell you all, it is not easy telling this story, to relive it, to face certain things out loud that I had to face internally. Just want to say that. So I will push forward to finish, but today got to me. The toll of this got to me today. So I know that you all are like, we're waiting on the next part. We're waiting on the next part. I appreciate that. And I get, because if I was in those shoes, I would be waiting too and be like, where is it? So I understand that. But the toll was real today. All right. So with that being said, we are still in July of 2021. I had talked to the brother, Chris. I had talked to the aunt. I talked to all these people. And now was the time where I had saw the receipts for the weekend jail type thing. So I went ahead and did a search for his criminal history. I ran his criminal history. I did that on my own at home with my money. So this was not, I think someone had asked if I did anything with my job. No, I did not. I know better. So I ran a criminal history, or I paid for a criminal background report. For him to say that he appreciates law enforcement so much, it was obviously because the criminal history showed that he had been arrested for criminal trespassing. He had been arrested for like suspended license, suspended registration. But the big thing was impersonating an officer. If you don't know anything about impersonating an officer, it is a felony. Period.
Damn, dude. My man is doing everything, bro. He's just, oh, dude, he probably did. That's probably the greatest. Oh my God. I wish I could have seen a legend at his peak. You know what I mean? This is like seeing Mozart when he's alive, okay? Composing his greatest work. Like Legion playing the role of a police officer. I would love to see that. I bet he fucking killed it, okay? I'd love to see a legend in the field, okay? Doing his greatest one yet.
Point blank. As sure as Peachtree runs from Bankhead to Buckhead, it is a felony. So
yeah, it's the Jordan flu game
seeing
of
what
lies.
court it was in, I did another open records request for the incident report. I wanted to know exactly what the circumstances were, especially given the fact that I worked in law enforcement. What were the circumstances as to how he was arrested for impersonating an officer? So I did an open records request. I got the incident report, and I'm tired of saying my jaw hit the floor, but on this one, my jaw hit the fucking floor.
Oh my
I respect
God.
law enforcement. Again, I'm working in an agency with a lot of great men and women. Basically, what the incident report, I'm paraphrasing it because I don't have it sitting in front of me. Basically, what the incident report shows is that he pretended to be an officer using a badge. I later found out it was the badge that his dad had as a former correction officer. Same last name. So he was pretending to be a police officer at an apartment complex on the south side of Atlanta, and proceeded to tell people that he was an investigator and he was looking for drugs. He also proceeded to try to pat down someone, and then also proceeded to try to go into a woman's apartment and do a search. This is in the incident report. So naturally, the woman who he was trying to get into her apartment to do a search happened to either work with or worked at a local police department. So she just simply called her coworkers or called her homeboys or whatever. And so he was subsequently arrested and subsequently was charged and found guilty. That is what I found. And he would come visit when he would fly in when he would go see his parents. And that was the story. Never heard from him at all. He wasn't. His phone was dead. It was going straight to voicemail, and I genuinely was worried. A few days turned. By the time I hadn't heard from him in a week, because I knew he was not living anywhere but his car. That I knew that. So this is what happened, y'all. I first reached out on Facebook. Remember, even though he has told me that he had all these siblings, we know he didn't have all these siblings. But remember, I told y'all I had met the brother in Augusta, and I had met the brother in Baltimore. These are people I've met. The brother in Baltimore I talked to on FaceTime. The brother in Augusta I've actually physically met, hugged, shake hands, all that. So I reached out on Facebook to people that I remember him talking about all the time. The friend Omar, the brother in Augusta, the brother in Baltimore, another cousin in Augusta. I was doing a search for these people's names, just like, hey, have you heard from Lee? The brother in Augusta told me, no, I haven't heard from him. I've been trying to reach him, but the phone's going straight to voicemail. I knew he was living in his car. So my brain was doing everything it could not to go on the deep end. I reached out on Facebook to the brother in Baltimore, and I said, hey, gave him my name, and I said, have you heard from Legion? Now, mind you, the brother in Baltimore and him have talked on speakerphone. I guess it's important that I make that distinction. They have talked on speakerphone. So I know that they have talked at least in 2020. So I said to him, again, according to Legion, they talk all the time, but I've heard them on the phone in 2020. So I said, have you talked to him? The brother from Baltimore informs me.
Hi, I specialize in personality disorders. A way to make Legion's behavior make a bit more sense is a disordered way of getting closeness by trying to control the relationship through lying. A lot of times these behaviors do the exact opposite of what the goals are, and the person isn't really aware of their behavior, causing the issues because early on, life has taught them that this is the only way the world works. I mean, it makes sense. Essaying holy. Yeah, that is essaying, but positive essaying. Everybody chill. This is a productive essaying and not the normal kind of essaying that you normally get. Love is a real psychologist.